Um, well, okay, got it. um, because I was his target audience in the 60s. I turned 5 in 1960. So I got to see the first Peanuts special on TV. I read it during the creation of the Red Baron and all that stuff. And then I read all the back books. Everybody had his books. So I was his target audience. And for me, what captivated me was that that world was more fun and better than my world. So, one of the first criticisms any cartoonist gets, if they need it, is you need a sense of place for your characters. And he had it. And it was like going to Shangri-La for me. And then I would read about him as I got older. I would read about him. He seemed to be this really down-to-earth guy who lived at the time, I think I read he lived in like an A-frame house or something in the forest. And he just got to, I loved the life of a cartoonist that they described in the articles about him. So I thought, here's a guy who gets to just draw for a living, and he makes his own make-believe world, and it's so much better than the one I'm in. And it just captivated my imagination.
Right. So tell us how that led to Strangers in Paradise. How did it start? I think several of us are fascinated with the idea of, of publishing our own comics. I know for the most part, I know other folks published Strangers in Paradise as well, but for a big chunk of the run, it's been your own comic book company. How does that happen? Tell us how, as creators, what are the important steps that we need to take or need to think about in publishing our own comics? I see Hector Rodriguez is here tonight, and Hector's, of course, published his own comics as well. So talk to us about that. What are the key points in starting our own comics? I mean, do we need a lot of money to do that?
I've never put my own money into it ever. And it came from some other hobbies that I had over the years, where people would either waste a ton of money on their hobby, or they made sure that their hobby never cost them a dime. So I was around that kind of thinking. And when I started my comic book career, indie career, I wanted it to be a real job, a real business, a viable business. And I didn't want to start the business with a 5-year business plan and go to the bank, because I had never seen that work out for anybody. So it had to pay for itself. And once I investigated how the comic book direct market worked, that I realized that the trick was to get Diamond Comic Books to order a certain amount of that book. And then you use that order payment to pay the printer, and then print a little extra, and the extra was your profit. And then that was the business model for a long time back there in the indie days, like in the 90s. And that's basically the same business model. You use your Diamond order to pay for your print run. And if you're just one guy like me, there is no other overhead. I have a bunch of boxes of books, and I just go out and promote them and sell them, and either on the con or online. That's basically it. So I never went and borrowed $5,000 or anything like that to get me started, because I didn't need anything. All I needed was paper and pencil. Thank God. So,
right.
Yeah, that's it basically.
That brings up the question, as cartoonists, we want to know, I think a lot of us want to know what a normal day is around your studio. I mean, one thing I always find a challenge is not just the creative part, but I guess what you would call the marketing of your work. I mean, I hate doing Facebook and Instagram and all this stuff. It just eats up so much of my time, though. You got to realize it's important, right? And I guess, how do you divide your creative work from your marketing work? I mean, if you're a one-man guy, a business, you got to be doing your own marketing, right?
Yeah, and that was the difference. That's the switch that had to flip in my head, because obviously I'd been drawing since I was a kid, and I never saw myself connected to the art world. I tried to do strips for years, reject, 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 reject. And you just begin to feel like you don't belong. You'll never belong. You know, it's a club that doesn't want you. And so indie comics was my way to get in. So I made my own comic. First, I made the comic, drew the work, and I had a 30-page Xerox. And then I used that to open all the doors to meet people. Here's what I'm doing. I want to self-publish this. And then by the time it came out, a lot of people knew my name already just because I introduced myself. There's a nice syndrome where the people who are in the business are always looking for who is the new person. So there is that working for you. And they're always watching to see, are you the new guy? Are you the new one that we're going to watch this year? So that worked for, that's to your advantage. But what I had to, the switch I had to flip in my head was I would never stand up and want to draw attention to myself. And I think a lot of cartoonists are like that because basically we're observers. We're not the antagonist, we're the observer. So I didn't want to call attention to myself. But I realized that if I didn't call attention to my work, I was going nowhere. And I could spend my whole life never doing any of this. And that flipped a switch in my head where I thought, I'm going to make the work. And then I'm going to do whatever it takes to promote it. It's a different cap, and it's not about me, it's about the work. So I realized that I was able to separate my mind. So when I'm doing the work, I'm the Beatles, but when I'm promoting the work, I'm Brian Epstein. And it's not about me, it's about my characters. My main character, Kachu and Francine, they're a lot more famous than me, and that's the way I want it. And I promote them all the time, And so I was able to separate myself from that. And then it's like being proud of your kids, and you'll stand up and defend your kids at school and stuff like that. It's like that. It's the same kind of parental hat that you put on, and you think, okay, what's it going to take to get my kid to have a better chance, And it's kind of like that. Not as important, but it's kind of like that.
Right. Well, cool. Those are my quick questions. I have more, but I wanted to open it up to members. Bill, good to see you tonight. Glad to see everybody here. Jerry, Laura, Milburn, Donnie, of course. Come on, anybody, let's open it up for questions. And if not, I can keep going. But if anybody has a question, please chime on in. Let's talk. Bill, go ahead. Mute, Bill. There you go.
Terry.
Oh, hey, Bill.
Hey, Terry.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad to see you.
Why are you in a car?
I'm in a car.
Why are you just like a chicken?
I got arrested and I'm on my way to the pokey.
Okay.
So,
I thought you might be in line waiting to get into the Minute Maid Park or something like that.
No, actually, yeah, I'm on the freeway and we're at a dead stop. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I had to drive to Austin to see my granddaughter play volleyball. So I'm in my car in Austin.
Okay. Oh, good. Cool.
I'm glad we sorted that out.
Okay, I got a legitimate question for you.
Okay.
The business you've been in for so long, a lot of the art is sold from the books. The original art is sold, but a lot of people are working with digital now. Are you working with digital, or are you working with pen and ink?
I'm still pen and ink.
And you sell those originals?
I do sell those originals. It's part of my income.
Yeah.
It's significant for me. So my income is basically from the book sales, from the sketches that you can always sell at the show or online, and then the original art. And one of the reasons why I really wanted to sell my art anyway, because I heard about Mozart wasn't popular beyond a certain region until he died, and his wife spent the rest of her life promoting his stuff everywhere and making everybody play it. And I realized, we wouldn't even know about people like Degas if it hadn't been for the benefactors and they take it out and spread it. If you leave it in the hands of the artist, it's just going to molt and die and fade away and get flushed. So, and they're also, every artist has a chapter in their biography about the studio fire, right? So I didn't want that. So I thought, well, it's better to spread it out, and spreading it out also makes me feel like I have a bigger footprint in the world. And so now the art is in a lot of countries, and it's going to be a lot harder to forget about it if it keeps popping up all over the place like whack-a-mole, you know.
I don't want to take complete credit, but I did work at Heritage Auctions for a while, and I think I may have hooked you up with a couple of those guys over there, Terry, to sell some of your stuff directly to fans. And I know Heritage has become kind of a partner in some cases with the national NCS,
So I'll see if I can.
fundraising and that kind of stuff. But as far as, you know, you using your artwork, as you said, another revenue stream, and you're doing pen and ink still. Tell us what you use. I mean, what kind of ink, what kind of drawing tools you use if you're still doing it the old-fashioned way?
I'm using brush and dip pen. So I use like a Raphael #1 and 2 brush. I used to use you remember all the art tutorials and cartoonist books said use a Winsor Newton Series 7? Well, about 15 years ago, they started splitting, and everything I bought split, you know. And I actually contacted Winsor Newton and said, you know, are you guys going to fix this? And they said, we don't have any idea what you're talking about. So I switched to Raphael, and they're great, and they never split. So I use Raphael and Hunt 102s, and then I use the Microns because they don't bleed. And I use the 400 series Strathmore vellum, smooth paper, Bristol. And I just make it the old fashioned way, 11 by 17. And 11 by 17 fits in those Mylar sleeves, and that fits into a FedEx box. So it's as good, you don't want to go bigger than that. Every time I sell an old page of art that's oversized, it's a real hassle. So yeah, and I just do that. So what I do is I'll make the page art, and then I'll scan it high res on a Epson scanner, put it into my computer, and then I'll crop it and size it in Photoshop. And then I make the book layout in Adobe InDesign, and then make that into a high res print ready PDF. And the PDF is what I send to the printer because it's one layer and they can't mess it up. What you see is what you get. And that's pretty much it. And they send me a proof email. And then that's it. I have a Wacom tablet that I use for small corrections, but I don't paint or draw with it. One of the reasons why I don't do digital art is because I think it's so much faster. It's great. You know, it's a great way to get a lot of art out. And it's also digital art is a great way to make sure your drawing is right, because you can cut and paste and move and align, and you don't have to just start from scratch all the time. But in the end, what you end up with is a JPEG, and I can't sell a JPEG, you know. I can sell the imagery and the IP and the book, but, you know, there is no canvas that I can hang on the wall. And I still kind of like the idea of hanging something on the wall. So I feel like an old fashioned violin maker or something.
Any other questions from the group?
Yeah, Terry, what kind of scanner do you use?
I had the same one for 20 years. It's an Epson 1640 XL. It costs about $2,100. And somebody I know just bought a couple of them last year or 2 years ago, and they were the same price, updated version. So they've held their value, and it's just never, ever failed. It's an Epson 1640, and it'll take like a 12 by 18. So it's oversized, and I can do that full size. And it's fantastic. I guess it's going to last my whole career. I have like 3 or 4 things that I bought on day one, and they've lasted my whole, the last 27 years of working every day. One of them was that Epson scanner. The other one was my my lettering ruler, my Ames lettering guide. I bought a spare and I've never opened it. And then I bought a compass set just from the standard stuff, a good one, architectural compass set. It has never failed me. So those things last forever. The Ames lettering guide, you only need one a lifetime, that's for sure.
There should be a computer version of the Ames lettering guide. I have to create some lettering guides myself on the computer. There should be some way to do that with it. I got another quick question for you. In a previous life, you worked in television, right?
Yeah.
And were you involved with the editing of the segments and stuff, of the news segments?
Yeah.
Did that?
I was an editor.
Does that help
Yes.
you at all with your editing stories and stuff like that?
Absolutely, it did. Yeah, it did, Bill. Because I was an editor for like 11 or 12 years in post-production. A lot of it was commercials. But a lot of it was also documentaries and whatever, and training films. And the job of the editor is to look at a ton of stuff, boil it down to the best thing, cut in, cut out, all that. So timing and I spent hours and hours watching actors, every move of their face. And sometimes you'd get an actor who is really good and you could just scroll frame by frame and watch. In one sentence, there would be so much range on the face, as opposed to the people who are dead on camera and there was no range, And it helped me a lot with expressions, because one of the things that I had a problem with as an amateur artist was I would try so hard to get a distinctive character, and then I was afraid to change it. Because it'd break character. And then I would watch these good actors, and from frame to frame, they would look like a different person. And it gave me a lot more freedom when I was designing my characters for my books, that it's okay to stretch and warp and skew and all of that, as long as you have the core face on there at least once a page or something like that. And then the rest of it, I got a lot more freedom. And I learned that from actors. So, and another thing that it taught me was, in television, they want to cut in at the last possible moment and cut out at the first possible moment. Keep everything moving. And when I got to the books and started making my books, I broke that rule on purpose. There was two things I didn't want to do. I didn't want to cut in and cut out fast. I wanted to get to the room early and leave the room late, so that I would have a chance for the characters to say those things that you really want to hear. Some of the best stuff that's said about you is said after you leave the room. And I wanted to put that in the story, right? So I started working that way. And the other thing I tried really hard to do was to never do a Joseph Campbell hero journey story, because we're just surrounded by them. And I just didn't want that to be my voice. So those two things is what I picked up in editing.
We got
Somebody
less.
asked me about the lost years.
I had a question for you. When you were first starting out and you were trying to develop your audience, I was curious, what was the thing that you did that was a waste of your time? And what was the thing you did that you felt, helped you most grow and get to know the audience that eventually liked your work?
The biggest waste of time in my career has been contributing to anthologies. It takes somebody 20 seconds to ask you. It takes you 3 days to do it. It takes them 5 seconds to say thanks. It goes into a book nobody looks at and nobody reads. So anthologies were a waste of time for me. Yeah. And the best thing I ever did was to go out and meet the public at the shows and do panels and just be honest and open, because they can tell if you're posing or, just be really honest and be courteous to the people who are, because that's easy if they're reading your book, right? I mean, you walk into the room, you're so damn grateful for everybody to be there. So I think meeting people and letting people see me and put a face to the work has helped, because they know it's not coming from 20 people at Disney or a jerk they don't like because, whatever. You just try to be approachable as an artist and somebody that they're not gonna God forbid you're doing things that would, if they find out about it, they'll cancel you or something,
Thank
So
you.
just trying to meet people.
Okay, thank you.
That's very true. There's very little, I don't, maybe not bureaucracy, but there are very few layers between you and your readers, right? It's you and the readers, and that's it. And that's why I imagine, I mean, you're always in San Diego, aren't you, Terry? Isn't the San Diego Comic-Con kind of important to you?
Yeah, we did it every year for 23 years straight.
Right.
And actually, typically we would do like 11 shows a year. And then it got to be where like there would be 9 or 10 shows in America, and then there would be a run of stuff in Europe. I've never gone down to South America, but I've gone to Mexico City. But yeah, and I think the European market is important too. The thing about your social media is that now you're talking to the world, so you can have fans in Russia or Brazil, wherever. And when you go to shows in Europe, you realize how important it is when you go to a show in Europe. You cannot tell where the kids are from until they open their mouth, because they look exactly like the American kids. It's all one global pop culture now. So yeah, of course your book would be popular in Sweden. Of course it would. They're reading everything else we do over here. So that's why I put up with things like Facebook, which I really hate. But so many followers from south of the border are on Facebook and follow me there. If I quit Facebook on principle, I lose, all those people that are using that as the way to keep touch. So I found that the social media has been important, and it's been good income. You can have sales and stuff for a weekend, and your customers are on your social accounts.
About how many online, what do you call them, fans or users do you have, or club members do you have?
Well, you would have to get a whiteboard, and there's this 0 is Instagram, that ring is Facebook, that ring is Twitter, and they all overlap a little bit, but they are also 3 different arenas. So every social account has its own unique thing. A lot of people only use Facebook. A lot of people only use this or that, So as many as you can stand to do. There's only so many you can stand, I just have 3 and a website. Has anybody here done Kickstarter?
Hector?
Yes, I've been pretty successful, just for my hardcore fan base. And it's definitely a job once, you do about 4 months pre-planning beforehand, and making sure that you have your mailing list on point, as well as your media connections, and I mean, you're pitching it beforehand, and there's different ways to gauge pre-sales of it, and then you're fighting the algorithms within Kickstarter itself, as well as social media. But you just have to go with the punches, adapt, and and if it's for your hardcore fan base more than anything else.
I'm thinking about it. I haven't done it.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a great way to engage, and for those that always been there for you. And there's different formats, of course, and there's a lot of services now, even for pre-planning. I mean, going through guiding it through the whole process. Of course, there's also a lot of companies that are trying to take advantage of you.
Yeah.
But it's a great idea too. I mean,
What kind of bass do you have, Hector?
What's that?
What is your bass guitar back there?
Oh yeah, it's an Ibanez. I used to play a lot of bass in high school and college. Yeah, and I'll pick it up when I have time.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what? It's I have found that when I'm binge drawing, that my hand's in a claw the whole time.
Yeah.
So if I play guitar, it gets my hand to do something else.
True, right?
So it's good therapy.
That, and also video games too.
Yeah, which means we should be able to buy and write those things off.
You should be able to, yeah.
Yeah. I'm full of bad ideas.
That sounds actually an amazing idea.
Hey, Terry, I have not used Kickstarter, but I've invested in a lot of Kickstarter projects. A lot of them are books, cartoonist books and stuff like that. I'm not sure how common that is amongst everybody. Has other people have done that?
In comics, they have, especially the indie guys.
I was just wondering, the people here, have they invested in a Kickstarter project?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Because
Oh,
it
sure.
also, if you're a creator yourself, but you're also following and helping promote others, all that is tied to their algorithm, believe it or
Hmm.
not.
Okay.
But I mean,
And
Terry,
also Patreon. Patreon, yeah,
right.
that one too.
Patreon, yeah. But Terry, since you're pretty much established, I see you being super successful. I mean, look at Brian Polito with Lady Death, and he draws six figures like crazy.
He has a mass. Brian lives on his own planet, and
Yeah.
he has his own population. It's amazing. It's like not realizing how big a metal band is. You know, if you've never heard of Metallica, you don't have any idea. You know, oh, they
Yeah.
have their own jet. Are you kidding? Really?
Right.
Brian has his own jet. Yeah.
Right.
Some
It's
people are really
unbelievable.
good at it. Yeah. We had a talk with Robin and I, my wife and I had a talk with Brian and his wife, and we were really grilling him. So
Terry, what are you working on these days? What's on your project list right now?
I'm finishing up a series called Serial, about a serial killer, and that'll be finished in January. And I think that may be the last of my regular monthly comics, because my eyes are getting tired and my hands getting tired, and I think when I'm going to switch over to a different format, you know, try to figure out a new way to do something.
What's
I've been
something
on
less, something
I've
less
been on
frequent, you mean, or?
yeah, because I've been on this monthly deadline since 1993, and now being on a deadline for like, well, I don't know how many years that is. That's more than 3 years. I'm batshit crazy now because of that. So I got to do something else. Make my work in a different way as opposed to living on that monthly diamond retail direct market deadline.
Right.
How does your fine art fit into this?
I don't have any fine art. What do you mean?
Well, I thought you had on one of your pages somewhere, or like in that announcement, somewhere I got that image of that painting in the background. I assumed that was yours.
Thank you. I do painting, and I would like to explore that, but I have not pursued it or promoted it, sold it. And I don't want to do. I'm still mad at Bill Watterson for walking away from us and going home and painting, and then not showing us the paintings. So that's verboten. Nobody's allowed to do that. Don't quit and go say you're going to go home and paint and then not show us the paintings. So
Right.
I'll figure something out.
Right. Kevin, how much time do we have left?
I thought I saw we're unlimited right now. That we've
Is it
been
unlimited,
switched to
Kevin?
unlimited.
You're muted.
Oh, I didn't change it.
I didn't see a
Anyhow,
warning.
a while ago, there was a message that showed up on my screen. It said you've been switched to unlimited.
Oh, cool.
Oh, great. We'll go
That's
another
insane.
hour. Any other questions? Anybody have anything?
I have a question for Terry.
Go,
Because you
Karen.
brought up San Diego. I was just curious how, because so much of your model in the past has relied on being there in person and participating, and I'm sure you have, like all of us who go to conventions, you have your group of people you look forward to seeing and your fan base that you look forward to seeing, and you have your systems for, generating your income while you're there. So this past year with so many things having been canceled or virtual attempts, did that get you rethinking about options going forward? Or are you eager to get back to convention land? Or how are you feeling about convention life and thinking forward?
Other than separate separate the fact that, I'm reclusive. But in terms of business wise, so reclusive Terry doesn't look forward to going back into the crowded convention centers and all that. But in terms of business, we had twice a year over the last 2 years, Robin and I have had these big sales off our website, and we would reach out to our fan base, and then we would have this 3-day event, and we called it, Terry Moore Live, and I would do live streaming on twice on each of my social medias, and then we would have this sale going on in the web store, and I would have a bunch of sketches for sale and art. Those did just as well as convention for me. And so it was a possible for me to, this last year, make the same money as when I was on the convention trail. Because the thing about the convention trail is you go get a table and then you wait for your customer to walk by. So you're playing the odds of the crowd, 1 out of every 100. You're waiting for that one. It's like having a store in the mall. You're waiting for your one customer. It's the odds. You're just playing the odds. But if you do it online, anybody that's paying attention to you is your customer, and you're not wasting time on the traffic, the big traffic. So it worked out. It's become a viable thing for us. But there's nothing like going, to North Carolina and having a good show and talking to the retailers, especially the librarians and the retailers. The front wave of people you always want to be in contact with is librarians. They read everything and then they review it, and then all the other librarians read their reviews. They really do stay in touch. We learned that at the ALA meetings, yeah, the shows are really good for meeting the key people, the top of every pyramid, like a librarian, a retailer, a journalist, But if you're just looking to sell books to fans, you'll do just as well online.
When I would imagine there's a tipping point where you have so many fans, partly because you've put in that in-person time. Now fans can have a different level of access through a live stream. That's really satisfying, especially if you're, for a variety of reasons, not able to travel to a convention in person. But being able to also still have some in-person availability, so people know they can come and see you, talk to you personally, or have something hand drawn right there in front of them, or get an autograph of a thing, that's not replaceable. But that's really exciting to hear you were able to come up with, pivot that quickly to come up with a strategy that kept your fans engaged and also supported you financially. So that's brilliant.
But you know what? You are so right that face-to-face time,
Yeah,
it's a lot more permanent than flicking through something online. There's nothing like it. And I have a lot of memories of meeting fans, and sometimes people really, if they really are a fan, they have things they want to tell you.
right.
And if they can do that, then they will share that with others. So it all works. It's all good. It's good to go out.
Like a whole
I was always,
ecosystem, I guess.
I was always afraid of out of sight, out of mind,
Mm.
and especially in the comic book world, whatever you did last year is so over. It's kind of like the TV world. Think of all the TV shows that were huge hits and now we never talk about them. And I didn't want to be somebody that disappeared with the 90s or the zeros or the teens, So I just kept working as hard as I could to stay in this group, the working group now. So part of that is why I get on the plane and go to the shows too. So I'm here. Don't forget me.
Yeah. Well, I hope to see you in San Diego again soon.
Me too. Me
Yeah.
too. We plan to be there next year. So if they will do it,
Fingers
but
crossed.
not this. They're trying to do something here on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of hubbub about that. So my dad and I will be there to see what the special edition event is like. But that's easy.
Okay.
We're here, that's not a big hassle for us to show up. So it's interesting. I know that Comic-Con has said it's not meant to be a full-blown con nor a replacement for the usual con, but just something for those of us who are eager to get together. But I'm not sure how we landed on Thanksgiving weekend.
Right.
It's- We'll see. See how it goes.
Yeah,
Cool.
well, thank you.
Any other questions before we wrap up here? No, not a mucho. All right. Well, thanks, guys. I appreciate everybody coming out tonight and are clicking in tonight. It's a good showing for everybody for the group. So I'm glad everybody was able to make it. We'll keep on planning these, and we'll ask another member to join us. I don't know if we'll do it in November or if we'll just wait till January, because we are getting up to the holidays. So people start getting busy around here in their personal lives and their business lives. So if not November, we'll meet back here maybe in January. Unless anybody has anything else to bring up, I guess we'll call it an evening. And I appreciate everybody showing up again, all you guys. It's wonderful to see all your faces, and we'll see you guys again soon.
Thank you.
guys. Thank you, everybody.
Terry. Thank you,
y'all.
Hector. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Gary.
Bye, everybody.
Kevin, Hector.
Thank you all.